Everything is shared with you.
Cool.
Oh, we have another.
Boop, boop, boop. I recognize faces. And I recognize Grant's green screen. It's in the same configuration the last time I saw a Zoom window from Grant.
Welcome,
Looks
Levi.
like everybody's there.
You're new to the
Oh,
community. Hi.
hi.
Greetings.
All right, that's everybody. Tyler, take it away. I'm gonna go ahead and,
Dun,
and close
dun,
off
dun,
my
dun, dun.
screen. You need me? I'm here. It's fine.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking this out. There were others who had other engagements, so already planning on doing some version of this again. So, this, because we're such a small group, is going to feel more like a continuing conversation than some sort of presentation from me. So, for those of you who don't already know who I am, I'm just a very lucky guy who's been fortunate enough to have people pay him to act like an idiot and play with dolls and make stupid voices into microphones and all of that crap. Someday they're going to figure out that they don't need to pay me to do it, but hopefully it's not soon. Um, if you didn't run to check my IMDb and all of that crap, the shortest version of it is, and again, if I'm repeating information you already know, I apologize. I don't necessarily like talking about myself. It'll be brief. Been lucky enough to not have a day job as a performing artist, as it were, living in the New York City tri-state area for almost 30 years. Um, Between mostly puppetry has been the most visible thing, and the the highest paychecks I've been lucky enough to cash. But I also have had some success as an actor, both stage screen, operetta, um, uh, short form, improv, and of course, acting roles in various little TV shows and movies and things. And I've also been part of the creation process for a number of usually children's properties, usually educational, but all kinds of pilots have come and gone, and never managed to be the lead of a thing that actually got picked up. But I've been a supporting player, ensemble player, asked to come to the table with many characters more often than not. So most of my character creation has been as performer, but I have also done character creation as part of creative teams getting new properties and new stories off the ground. I am going to soon, so you can start preparing your answers now, ask all of you to introduce yourselves and why you're here and what in your experience has brought you to be here and what you're hoping to kind of get from today so that we can just get the most for you possible rather than listening to me prattle on like I am now. So, I am literally just going to go across the screen as I am seeing them from right to left, so don't be surprised, and so that you're prepared for it. My order is Megan, Grant, Levi, Carolyn, Gert. That's who I'm seeing, and that's the order that I'm seeing you in. So, like I said, feel free to open your microphone, tell me why you're here and what you're hoping to get out of today, and I'll try to orient our exchange to give you as much of that as is possible. Alrighty, so Megan, you're first. Tell me what's up.
Um, Shoot, I hate going first. I usually
Oh,
use
sorry.
everyone else is talking to formulate what I'm
Of
going to
course, yeah, sucks for
Um,
you.
yeah. Uh, but I mean, honestly, I'm just really looking forward to anything you have to say on character work because I feel like that's something that you do exceptionally well. Every character that I've ever seen you perform has that kind of spark that you can't quite put your finger on, but they just feel really real. So yeah, I mean, voice characterization, kind of finding, I think that's something that I'm focusing on is just finding as building my repertoire of voices and what I can do voice wise, but yeah, just hearing your heart and how you and your brain and how you build out a character.
Cool. Rockin'. Basic foundational stuff. Cool. We can play with that. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for the compliments. That's very kind of you. Grant, tell me why you're here.
Oh, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not just a floating head. There's
There's more to
of
me.
me below
Oh,
here.
God. Oh, okay. Oh, phew. There was clothing. I feel better.
Um, I'm I'm new with puppetry, but I'm not new with performing because I used to do a lot of magic shows, a little bit of ventriloquism. I've had a ton of improv, and I have the weekly Sunday monitor classes, and I've been doing a lot of character creation, and I'm getting ready to do a podcast with a lot of voices, and I have a lot of puppets, and some puppets kind of come naturally on the character, but others don't, and so and I know the importance of having characters that are very specific and unique, and it can be easy for me to do that for myself, though I'm sure you have techniques where I can apply that to puppets. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Cool. So both kind of what Megan was saying, creating distinct separation between vocal characters and then ideally applying that to puppetry as well. Cool. Levi, hope I'm saying that correct.
Yeah, no, it's Levi. So I do voiceovers, and the character stuff is the best part of that job. Um, and I'm here specifically because a family friend worked on Sesame Street and said, "Hey, Tyler is doing this class, and you might not know him, but he's really fantastic at doing character work." And I went, "Okay, yes, I would like to be there." Um, and what I'm looking to do is, I like doing character work, but I really want to work on giving characters, more depth and substance. Because I love just getting into a voice, but sometimes you go into something and you go, I feel like I've done this for like three other characters and I want to differentiate it, but I can't think of a way to go about that.
Sure.
Or like, hey, I've got this really fun angle on a character, but I've taken the voice to a place where I feel like I'm losing some of the actual reality of it.
Okay.
And even if it's for, just a very small project, you always want to do work you're satisfied with, right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. Very cool. All right, cool. Range with realism and distinction, and sounds like sort of a toolkit to expand your
Yeah.
range within those parameters. Got it.
I want to just take what I'm doing further.
Cool. Rockin'. Gert, you're up.
Yeah, so I was an actor before the pandemic, and then after the pandemic, I'm now trying to transition into both acting and puppetry and other stuff. The issue I've got is if something's written, I don't struggle with creating that character that someone else has written. So if it's in a script, if it's in a thing, that's fine. But with my own puppets and things I'm trying to do, because of how my brain works, everything just tends to sound like something that already exists. And
Okay.
I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that what I'm doing is kind of fitting and unique to what I'm doing, rather than just copying a funny voice or a funny character trope that I've got from somewhere else.
I hear you. Okay. So trying to mine the facets of your diamond, your originality, without feeling like you're derivative, effectively. Okay, gotcha. Carolyn, why the heck are you here?
It was so much fun. That's why. I love the last one we did. I love to have fun, so it's nice to learn from people that make learning enjoyable. I also want, obviously, to learn some skills in character design. I want to be a character designer in illustration as well as a professional puppeteer, so both relate really well. Draw the characters, make them come to life, and I've been told a lot that I create characters. Well, when I teach yoga, I actually do a lot of voices to keep it interesting.
Oh, fun.
So I want to learn how to do, I want to go into this professionally. So I'm kind of very beginner right now. So looking to change my career and then learn from the best. Woo! There you go.
Well, I'll go see if I can find somebody. Glad you're here. So it seems like you're kind of echoing what some of the other folks said, but that the notion of design is interesting. Because to me, so we'll just start the conversation then. So to me, the reason character exists is that you are illuminating narrative, moments, stories, jokes, whatever it is, for an audience in order to touch on things they know, but effectively illuminate something you're either hoping they don't, or you're helping them make a connection to something that may not have been made for them before. Like, for instance, with comedy, pretty much any time you laugh at something, there is ultimately an element of surprise there. It's either the character does a thing you weren't expecting because you would have made a different choice, or they're going to react to something differently because of what they are, and you're waiting to see the way that they're going to do it, and in an ideal world, it surprises you. Or even something as simple as a knock-knock joke, your brain is trying to make the connections before the words that are the punchline, and 9.9 times out of 10, the reason you laugh at it is because you couldn't connect the dots before it happened. So all of that, if you kind of look at it through a very specific lens, comes from the fact that the idea isn't yours. It's something being introduced to you or surprising you. And there really isn't a story that exists without some form of character. Our jobs are to ideally find those characters that will most adeptly either paint the picture that you want the audience to have, or bring them along on the journey that you want to take them on. Start with some really big stuff that we're all kind of consumed. It's kind of hard to exist on the planet without having seen at least one episode of The Simpsons. And whatever spotlight on political correctness or incorrectness may have happened in the last few years, Hank Azaria, to me, is one of the stars of that ensemble. And his ultimate toolkit basically just involves exactly like what you were saying, Garrett. He starts with something derivative, but then he pushes it to a new place. He's the first one to say that all of his voices are basically just bad impersonations of celebrities. He has an idea in his head of how it would be funny if this character sounds like this, but then because of the words given from others, layered within the reactive properties of the other lines that he's either, if they're lucky enough, they're recording in the same room, but how that character is reacting changes this impersonation into a uniqueness and individuality that is very much representative of what we've all come to know as the character. So You know, Chief Wiggums is basically just a really old impersonation from an actor that nobody sees anymore, and he has twisted it into his voice enough that it sounds like something completely unique. And pretty much all of his characters, if you don't already know that he's quite a lot of the supportive cast, it all starts from that sort of initial spark of a thing he already does well. Because the worst thing we can do, and it sounds like most of us are leaning towards performing characters as opposed to creating / writing characters, with the exception of, you know, Carolyn's thinking about things in terms of design. But the thing that's going to be most interesting to an audience is you. That sounds strange, but you and your unique take on the world and the way you have uniquely connected dots in your world is going to be much more interesting to an audience than you trying to recreate the thing you think they want to hear, or the thing you think from the outside in should represent the moment. You're going to have characters that resonate the most, that feel the most real, if they are based in some action or some area of a thing that you automatically can make the choices for them and the way they feel about things. Quite often the most interesting reads of a character's words coming off the page are because the actor did them in a way that you weren't expecting. I'm kind of saying the same things over and over again in different ways, but you will be the most surprising thing to an audience, because you will bring the things that you would be your unique coloring to the situation, rather than trying to be what you think they want to hear. The minute you put the goal of being different out there, the more likely it is you're going to push yourself toward something that's inauthentic. The easiest way to kind of give you an example of that, I'm sure all of you in your social circles, or with your family, or old things that you remember, even you know, your peer groups, maybe when you were younger or even now, there's a thing you know you can do that will always make them laugh. You're either going to impersonate somebody they know or somebody in common, or you're going to, there's that common joke you all have, or that story you always tell about your friend that responded to the authority figure in a certain way and, you know, made fun of the cop or said the wrong thing at being pulled over or whatever it is. And that thing that you know you can go to that rings true, that if you live in that moment, it's a character. It's your version of that moment. And the more you push yourself to the specificity of that moment, of that individual, of that exchange, and imagine living through that POV and making choices through that moment, now you're basically creating this individual existence that's always going to interpret the outside world with that specific lens, that specific moment. You're going to think about the world in a certain way because you're trying to put it through that filter of that voice in that moment, whatever it is. All you have to now do is go back into your time, your world, your life, and find all of those moments. Find those times when there is an image in your head of who that person is, who that world, the world that person lived in the moment, and make it that person's entire world. And that's a character. It's a totally new facet of you, facet of what you know about the situation. And it may even not even be the right one. Like, quite often our emotional memory is not actually true to the facts of a thing. But our emotional memory, how we felt about the thing, so colors that memory that the definition of the moment and the exchange in that moment is literally our memory now and not the facts. The whole, if you don't know Rashomon or the things that are based on it, about the same story being told from the three angles of the same character. The same story from three different characters' points of view. and you get new information each time, because even though the same physical things happen, and the same pick up a glass, drink the whole glass down, put the empty glass back down on the table, the table's going to have a very different experience from that moment than the glass, and then obviously from you and whatever was in the glass. They're all going to have very different experiences of that thing. And the more you push yourself to how each of those things in that narrative would react to what's happening to them, and if you push them into that emotional existence even stronger and have them interpret everything in their world from that specific emotional existence, you start separating them and making them unique, and making the way that they would look at the world unique. To me, and what I've been tasked with doing more often than not, I always find the most success if I can find, much like what happens with the what's been said about the Muppet characters, find that it's been defined as flaw. I don't really see it as flaw. I see it, again, as lens or filter. The unique way that that character is going to interpret the world around them, and always look for the things that justify the way that they are looking at the world. Someone may not go through a day not really experiencing someone being rude to them or offensive to them. But if their radar is turned up for that, they're going to find the rude or offensive in things that don't even exist. They'll find these ways to reverse engineer the memory of a situation so that, oh my God, that thing totally happened to me, and it didn't. But that's the way they view the world, so that's who they become. And now we give that persona, that lens, that filter, a physical existence. What does it look like? What do they look like? How do they carry themselves? How do they kind of interact with the world? Are they chest forward and really pumped and excited to be here, or are they, oh crap, I gotta get up again, or are they completely distracted and, oh, that thing? Their thoughts and how quickly they do or don't come to them. Are they a character that puts their words together easily? Do they stumble a little bit while trying to put thoughts together? Do things roll out? Are there pauses as they start to try and figure out how they're going to communicate what they're going to communicate? Or is this a moment where they've obviously rehearsed it and they're finally getting the opportunity to say the thing that they're going to say, and that assurity, or that very forward manner of expressing themselves comes forward because of their rate of speech and their rate of thought, and again, whether or not the words even form well. And then we start dealing with hierarchy of position. Are they subservient, generally speaking, or are they kind of an alpha, kind of always in control of things? So we start dealing with the status and how that affects the way that they communicate, and how that affects their willingness to communicate in any given moment. And then if you can find a lot of people, and again, Garrett, I'm reminded of your comment. I don't really think of tropes or existing knowledge set between performer and audience, or character creator and audience, as crutches. I see them as grounding points, as inroads. If you can hook them into a character's, everything that I just said, character's status or energy level or whatever, because you use an existing framework to get them in, to say those things that you don't have to explain all this stuff, and you can jump right into how the character's feeling about things, or how the character's uniquely reacting to things. It's okay that it was through the guise of something they may already know. What you get to do is bring in your specific take on that thing that we all already know. So if and when you find yourself being derivative, I would argue that it's because you're outside in looking at the character. You're trying to make it sound like the thing that you know, rather than using the thing that you and the audience know to communicate a new thing, to communicate a new idea. We can almost watch anybody who's passionate about a subject, who's really good at their job, talk about it for a while. If they can find these intricacies of how they grab that lever and pull it down and the clay fills up the mold, and you have to make sure that you look and get all the little edges trimmed off before you sand where the seam happened, and then you can put it into the painter. But if you don't do that, if it isn't completely dry, even with you used a wet sander on there, if you haven't made sure that it's blotted, then the paint won't happen. So what I do is, it doesn't matter what it is that you talk about. If you do it with specificity, interest, engagement, we're all gonna go, why the fuck is he talking about sanding? What? You pull us in with your passion. You pull the audience in with the character's passion of a subject, or even the surprising lack of passion. It's all about the specificity. The more specific you are on the character's take on the world, the more specific you are on the way that they share that, express it or don't express it, making solid choices is always going to be what brings the audience in, and what's going to keep them there if those solid those solid choices feel unique to the moment, and you up your batting average, if you will, by just letting it come from your experience, your knowledge, and that facet of you that you can apply to pushing the character and their feelings on things in that direction. It sounds like, for instance, if we're talking with Levi with just voiceover stuff, like thinking about the character's physical existence may not necessarily seem that important. But it affects where breaths happen. It affects how deep breaths are. It affects whether those breaths are vocalized. How much acting can you do in a breath? What informs that breath? Is this an athletic character? Is this a somewhat overweight character that struggles to breathe? Is this a character who we are experiencing having just done something really physical or is about to do something physical? Are they in the process of gearing themselves up for something? Are they in the process of trying to cool themselves down from something? And just when they would breathe, how they would breathe, whether or not they would let us hear them breathe, affects everything in between the words. Everything that I've described so far, stature, who they're speaking to, how confident they are with or without it, affects the way that they would breathe. And that's going to affect also rate of speech and whether or not they're stumbling over their words or all these other things. And if you can give every character you have a physical reality, a specific location, and specific ideology and emotion around whatever the subject matter is, you're going to find that each time you push yourself toward unique facets, you're going to probably surprise yourself about how much range you have. Going back to our puppet world, Frank Oz, if you really think about it, Grover, Yoda, kind of, sort of, even Miss Piggy, they kind of really have the same voice. The vocal affectation, the pitch of the voice, how the sound resonates in one's head. It's kind of the same voice. You would never confuse the characters because of all those ingredients I just described. Their age, their status, where they are, in this case, there's also the appearance of masculine or feminine. There's not a huge difference in vocal quality, but rate of speech, order of words, whether or not I shouldn't say whether or not, the effect they're trying to have on whoever's listening, the impact they're trying to have, the things they're trying to communicate, all of that, you would never confuse those characters, even if you were just hearing them. Again, extreme example, but when you compare to like a Jim Cummings, who most of us can recognize some of his offset characters, but when he's had the framework of another voice artist to kind of hang his hat on and then take it in his own direction, you would never, the average audience member would never guess that the same voice actor is performing Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. Most of us would not even try to make those connections. Now, given, again, he had the luxury of impersonating those that have come before, but there's also a point where his oar can't help but come in. His interpretation of what the other actor who performed Tigger would have done is what informs his choices now. Same thing with Pooh. You know, his politics aside, he's a ridiculously strong mimic, and he's utilized his ability for mimicry to push sounds into new areas and push into more complete and believable characters, because he keeps expanding that sense of mimicry. And also, you know, for Levi, you're going to be able to utilize your knowledge of the microphone and proximity to the microphone and turning up a gain down or turning gain up or down, and finding, you know, like Jim Cummings Pooh is like this real quiet, whispery thing where he can be right up on the mic and he hardly has to do anything. But then when he's when he's doing the loud Tiggery stuff, you know, he's backing off and he's taking advantage of the equipment. Puppeteers, we can kind of do that to a certain extent. It's harder for, obviously, for live theater things, but when you have the luxury of recording your voice and being able to play with it afterwards, your range triples and quadruples. So ridiculously long monologue to say that coming from a place of reality, and most specifically your reality, is always going to make the most interesting characters. So that groundwork is from where you should start. And now that we've talked about characters as they exist in here and in here, now let's do some artifice, and we'll just talk about how you can use your instrument more effectively to represent character. Puppeteers, you have the luxury of movement, like everything that I just said. You get to decide the character's amplitude across the screen, you know, how tall, how stature, what the, you know, literally how they move, and how you can accentuate and push that even further with the way that they're physically represented. But right now, it sounds like most folks are more concentrating on how you get different vocal characteristics into your characters. Resonance is the first thing. So, does anybody have any questions so far, or comments, or concerns, or just want me to shut up? Yeah, Levi kind of wants me to show up. I can see. Shut up. He's doing the billow face thing.
I am also interested, in addition to voices, the specific characterization you bring through movement, because I feel like that is unique to puppetry.
Gotcha.
Just throwing that out there. If we get
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, no, I think we could definitely get that, get to that later. Because again, I don't think they're disconnected. I think you have to, if you really want to live in a moment for the character, you have to picture how they're moving through the space, if that's what they're intended to be doing. Like I have yet to be involved in an animated thing or a video game thing where I have to at some point vocalize characters' movements, whether it's fighting Walla, or if we don't all know what Walla is, it's what they call the general sound effects that you do with your voice, or conversational Walla, fight Walla, happy, stupid Walla, whatever. So characters either swinging a weapon or jumping over something, or struggling to get away from something, or running to something, or whatever it is. And additionally, laughs. I think one of my clue-ins to trying to separate characters is how they laugh. Everybody's laugh is different, and therefore I think everybody's character's laughs should be different. And quite often, that where a laugh comes from indicates the physicality of the character to a certain degree, I think. And both they can inform one another, but I think, for instance, baby laughter is like one of the most awesome sounds like in the world, because it's natural, it's pure, and they're just completely living in whatever that moment is. And I bet if you just went right now and looked on the internet and just found all the different baby laughs, there are going to be unique sounds, and basing a character off their laugh is kind of cool. But I'm almost always never want to get myself caught in a trap of, I'm going to do a sound that sounds like a laugh now, because they're probably going to sound the exact same if you're not trying to think of it in terms of the character and how that unique sound would come out of that character. Circling it back to what you actually said, Megan, how we move when we laugh is unique. Your movement, where it comes from, where it's a diaphragm, whether it's all in your head, wherever that laugh comes from, is again informing how that body is going to be carried through space to a certain degree. What part of their center. So if you, as a puppeteer, didn't give yourself the gift of doing basic acting techniques and basic movement techniques, and where we're moving a character from our hips or groin, or whether a character carries themselves from their chest, or whether they kind of carry themselves from their head, or whatever it is, all of those aspects can translate to how a puppet moves across the screen or across the stage. And I believe the choices that I've already talked about to minute, will inform that movement, that carriage, that confidence of walk, that trepidation of walk, that lumber versus that quick step, that sporty leap versus that I can't get from point A to point B without taking a break. Whatever it is, it kind of has to come from all those other things. And with puppeteers, we usually have the luxury of the image to support that. I'd say about 60% of the time you have that with VO, but a lot of times that's just in a void. You have to picture what you think the character looks like and how it's moving. We get to inform that. So I think all the stuff I've said, if you apply it to the justification of why all those other things are happening, then you will automatically move differently. So backing up to what I was saying, resonance. All of you right now, you don't have to turn your mics on for this. Just basically your natural voice. If you just start talking right now, doesn't matter. Hello, my name is Tyler Bunch. I do this A, B, and C. I'm gonna find my natural conversational note. So do that right now. I'm gonna watch you. Find your conversational note. Whatever it is. Like I said, mine's about here. Once you find that note, sustain it for a minute. Now we're going to do a thing where we're going to try and push that note. Feel that note only in our chest. Only in our chest/diaphragm. So you're literally put your hands on your head and your face and try to drop your jaw, do whatever it is you think you need to do so that you don't feel anything but your chest vibrate. Do that for a second. What's going to happen is I haven't changed my note. I'm not changing the note. I'm not speaking any deeper. I'm simply placing it in my chest, and it's here. I'm not you hear the difference. It sounds deeper. It's not. It's simply where the resonance is. So I don't have to try and make my voice sound deeper. I'm going to try and push it here and make sure this isn't vibrating. And now when I speak, the sound coming out only vibrates my chest. Here it is. Now if I try to talk quietly like that, Again, it's the same note. I'm not changing anything about you. You can hear when my voice goes up into my mask a little bit. That's where I kind of naturally live between here and here. When I naturally communicate, I'm vibrating in my mask a lot. But if I focus on keeping it down here, and I only have it there, that's a sound, right? That's separate from Tyler's normal sound. For you, you've got chest, you've got throat only. If I try again to keep it out of the mask and only keep it here, then I got up here through the mask. Now I'm really using my face. Now I'm pushing it through my face. Again, not changing the note at all, but trying to make sure if I put my hands here and here, I'm going to try and make sure there's no vibration of my chest at all. I'm going to put it all right here, all right where it's vibrating in my mask. And then I'm going to really push it up so that it's out of the top of my head. Again, I'm not changing my note. I'm simply really forcing the sound to come out of the top of my head as much as I can. So those 4 places, or a combination of, automatically separates from your natural speaking voice into new territory. Now, if you actually change the notes, you've got, what's quick math? Depending on your vocal range, you got 20 different sounds right there. Because if I put it here and I speak deep, or if I put it here and I speak kind of higher, but I put it in my chest, right? I'm changing my note a little bit because my normal note is here. I'm up like a third, and I'm putting it in my chest. Now I'm like a, bravado teenager, whatever it is. If I put it in my face when it's that high, then now I'm like a nerd. I don't know what I am. If I really put it up high, and I'm not really changing the note that much, because if I were to tell you, if I drop it out of my mask and just hop here, I'm maybe a third, maybe 2/3 over my normal voice, but then I'm really pushing it up and through the head and being a little bit louder. If I now filter any one of those sounds with how easily the character thinks or doesn't think, how easily they do or don't put their words together, the confidence with which they do not speak, all those other aspects I've already talked about, I could have the same sound. And if I'm like not a terribly confident speaker, and my rate or the music of the way that I say things comes out different, then if I am someone who is simply going to let you know that every word that I say is terribly important, I have not changed the placement at all. I'm not even really doing an accent. I am simply being very specific with the way that I speak. Those were 2 different characters, only because of how I enunciated and how easily the words rolled out of my face. So if I were to say the same sentence, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what it is. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Same words, kind of the same voice, but the confidence with which, or the straightforwardness with which I speak to very obviously completely different characters. If you can apply resonance, placement, and again, we could just keep stacking. I'm going to wind up repeating myself. If you've made very strong decisions about all of those factors, you've got, I mean, again, you got like 30 characters right there, easily, as far as how they would come across to an audience. Now, we start dealing with dialects. And I know Garrett is pretty good at an American accent. I've heard it. Grant, do I see a finger up for a question? Oh, no, okay. It is your job to get good at the dialects with which your persona might be identified, and by I say persona, I mean your literal DNA, you need to get good at any dialect that someone could believably see/hear you as. It just serves you. Now, some of you may not have need to do that for personal narratives, but if you're putting yourself out into the performing world as someone who wants to be part of other people's narratives, you, again, up your batting average for employment if you've managed to master as many dialects as possible. The hard part that you need to make sure that you do, in the same way that we just played with voice just now in terms of resonance and placement, you need to make sure that whatever dialects you are doing don't become the character. I'll go to an easy one for me. I'm actually from Oklahoma. I was born in a little town called Tahlequah. I grew up mostly in Tulsa. That's where I went to high school. That's where a lot of my friends are from. Now, again, I ain't changing my voice. I ain't changing my note. I am simply Tyler talking like I am talking now. Same notes, same vocalization, same placement. I'm throwing that accent on top of it. And you can hear it when you listen, okay? Now, I put that accent way down low, and I put that accent towards something that, I don't know, the guy don't know how to put his words together too good. It's going to sound like a different character. If I put it up high like this here, also going to sound like a different character. I ain't changing my dialect. I ain't changing nothing but the placement on top of the dialect. Okay? Now, if you are there's another thing to think about. Like right now, if I am to look at you on the screens and I am to do an accent that you maybe have heard before, again, is placement. You think maybe I'm talk low? No. I take out this placement of sound here because I swallow it in the back. It sounds deeper. It's not. It sounds like, oh, he's doing Russian. He's going very low, no voice. No, these are the same notes that I'm doing here, but they have a tendency to what we call cover. They put the sound is in the back of the mouth, back of the throat, and it's back here, so it sounds deep. It's not. It's the resonance is different. They don't have. You can put your finger here and not feel it because the vibration is actually back here, where they raise their tongue and they place. So if I continue to do Russian accent and put in the mask up in here like this, there is still covered sound, but now I'm up here. I've changed to have up face mask. You know, perhaps it makes it sound a little younger. Perhaps it makes it sound a little, I don't know, conniving. But again, if I take same one and put in chest, put way down, again, so exponential versions of whatever it is. Knowing your baseline, whether or not you already have an accent, and being able to lose it whenever possible, or being able to transform it into some other direction, is always, always, always going to serve you. Knowing what your baseline is for all of these things, your natural speaking notes, your natural speaking placement, the dialect you naturally speak, the rate at which you naturally speak, the how easily words do or don't come to you, seeing it as qualities that you don't judge, you simply are aware of them all, is going to make it easier for you to push yourself in different directions in any one of those categories, if that makes sense. Questions, comments, concerns? Raise a hand. Spit at your camera. Levi, what's
Hi.
up?
Actually, I know this is a little thing, and if it's something that you rather revisit later, but I think we were talking about laughs for a minute, and this is something I used to have more trouble with, but to really get a good laugh, there needs to be a certain amount of abandon. And sometimes, I don't know, I find myself coming up to it, and it's almost like when you know you're going to go for a note at the top end of your range, and because of that, you kind of tense up and you lose it.
You blow it, great.
Sometimes laughter, getting a good natural sounding laugh, can be a little challenging.
Gotcha.
Do you have any points of advice?
Um, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Um, there's a clip going around social media right now. I don't know if you saw it, of this French talk show done kind of Oprah Winfrey style, where there's a circular audience around a stage with a bunch of chairs, and the video, they literally just brought in people with ridiculous laughs. Ridiculous natural laughs, and have them all on the stage at the same time, and just capture this 1 minute where one of the guys starts to laugh, and it sparks to the whole point where there's this cacophony of these ridiculous sounds. Like no human should make the sounds that these people are making. I don't think natural laugh is as necessary as consistent laugh. So if you find yourself sliding out of it, then you don't have the specificity of the laugh. If it doesn't feel good to do it, if it doesn't entertain you, then your instincts are probably right that you could find a better choice. But I would argue that there isn't a bad way to laugh. There just isn't. It's just making sure that it's unique. Like right now, like you have that inhale, you know, that thing that you've got.
Made it a little tricky for me as I come in and like, you know, I think I have a very distinctive laugh because it's that sort of like car talk, like, and I can do that no problem. But when I try to, people are like, yeah, but occasionally people are like, yeah, but can you make it sound more normal? I'm like, well, one, fuck you, but
yeah, right.
But two, like, yeah, and like I know that's the thing is I will switch directions if I'm really just laughing my butt off.
Right.
So when I try to make a more outward sound, I just laugh as hard as I can, and then I just, you know, I get 3 seconds in and I run out of air. I'm like, didn't I go to school to learn how to project? And what happened to that?
Right.
But yeah, okay, so just go for it, and
just go for it.
It's what it is.
Yeah, and again, I'm being, you know, I will admit that most of the images that flash in my head when I talk about laughs are you know, like my first big break was a show on the Disney Channel called Bear in the Big Blue House. That's coming back October 19th.
Yeah. I watched it.
For that one, the characters that I do on that show, it's easier because they are so disparate. So like when you're doing a puppety or animation kind of caricature style characters, it's easier. When if your gambit is, you know, audio dramas, or you do audiobooks, or you got a thing where you need to have a litany of natural sounding, human sounding laughs. Again, I think it's like anything else. You would have to practice it just like you would a song that you'd sing, and know that you know, I'm either doing that, you know, a high pitched chuckle or a full on belly guffaw, or a guy who vocalizes on the inhales, or you know, whatever it is. I think you could practice it so that it's always a go-to and it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part for what you just said is, you know, basing it on your own laugh means that all the characters would have your own laugh. So like for me, like Treelo's is very staccato, and kind of breathy. Pops, hi Bear, kind of those explosions. Doc Hogg is a sort of a, you know, a held exhale, if you will. They're all three kind of plosive. I you know, I might have done it a little bit differently for Pop if I hadn't already established it, you know, for it to come back again or whatever. But right there, the vocal qualities of the characters themselves are going to lend themselves to a certain pitch, obviously, of the laugh. But then after that, you've got so many. There's what, like, so many different ways, and then so many different variances within, because then you're going to have a different, in one of those ranges, you're going to have a different bemused chuckle than you are a full-on guffaw. So I think your knee-jerk that it feels forced makes total sense. But then I also think you give yourself the gift of finding a range of them that don't feel forced, that you can apply to the situation, might serve you. I wasn't going to do a lot of doing in this class. I was going to let you guys do. Expand. Do you want a second parter to that question, or
No,
did we get there? No, good. Okay, cool.
Covered all the bases and then some.
Cool. So circling back to dialects, those also start to push in towards regionalisms and idioms, which more often than not, when we're performing someone else's narrative, we don't necessarily have the freedom to put a bunch of that stuff in. But you having a strong sense of the things that the character says when the camera's not turned on or when the microphone's not turned on, I think will also help to inform the specificity of the choices that you make when you are doing what's on the page. So having the inner life of the character's thoughts, which are specifically based on your own experience or your own interpretation of your own experience, is always going to serve to push you toward that specificity that makes the characters unique. So dialects to me are informative of the character's social existence and how they grew up, as much as they are how everyone else perceives them. And again, the more specificity you can do with that, the better. There have been a couple of times, like for instance, when I'm doing a character that English is not their first language, I've gone to Google and cheated and had Google translate it into the original language that the character is supposed to be speaking, typing in the line, and then take that same line, copy paste it into a new translation, literally close out, close back in, go back in, and copy and paste the new dialect, or pardon me, the new language, the original language, back into English, and really pay attention to, in the original language, sentence structure, whether or not they construct their sentences in the same way that English does, where articles and verbs and descriptors are actually in the sentence, because the character is going to think in their original language. So being able to put the words in the order that is closer to their original language is automatically going to make the character sound different, because you're not using the words the way your typical audience would expect to hear them. And you don't have to do make-em-ups with that. You can literally utilize what the character already should be bringing to the table, which is their unique interpretation of the words that they're trying to communicate. Most of us here right now, if we're looking at employment possibilities, there are characters that I have played in my career that appropriately will never be part of my repertoire ever again, because specific skill sets that I had or relationships that I had the employers asking me to do less than appropriate for my appendages and skin tone, simply because I'm already in the booth, or I'm someone that they already work well with, or whatever. And this conversation I had in an NYU class for voiceover kids about, especially if you get to impart this to others of your friends. There were a couple of young kids of color in the class, and I basically told a story of, there's a producer producing a video game. They wanted a character to feel as if in this made-up world, a la sort of Lord of the Rings world, they wanted one of the regions to have the impression of the Serengeti, of the African plains, and a character that was supposed to be coming from that region. And this producer liked to work with individuals that were already on the roster, so there were 5 of us that got the audition. I happened to be the only one who was not culturally appropriate to be cast in the role, but I was the only one who could do the accent. And it puts the producers in this odd place of, do I do the thing that sounds right, or do I do the thing that is culturally right? And I basically said, you shouldn't put the producers in that position. They should be hard pressed to figure out who does the best accent, not pick the one person who can. It is your job to get good at the things that you should be, or the things that you could be. And luckily for me, it was perceived the way that I intended it, because it was, we're talking, I mean, almost 10 years ago now, which in the production world feels like a century ago in terms of this, the cultural attitudes, which should have been the norm, that are now becoming the norm. Nobody clicks play on your audition or lets you walk into the room wanting you to suck. They don't go, boy, I hope this person isn't anywhere close to the people we want for the job. That just doesn't happen. They want you to be perfect. They want you to be exactly what they're looking for. So, when and wherever you can, you should be increasing the likelihood that you will be that person by arming yourself with all of the tools possible. Comments, questions, concerns? Thumbs up. Happy smiling faces. Grant's shiny forehead. So, we're going to do an experiment. We got about 20 minutes for it by my count, because I think we should do a little walk away from your screen break at about 3:25 and come back. Well, 3:25 East Coast, I'm assuming where you are. So 20 minutes from now, on whatever your clock is, we'll take a little bit of a break and go get some blood in our legs. I want you to think. Actually, doesn't we all have availability to the chat? Yes? Can we all look at and or see the chat? Somebody look around your room right now and write a thing that you see in your room, just an object you see in your room right now. It doesn't matter what it is. First one that's up there, I'm going to look. It's a camel. Oh, top hat. Oh, top hat was the first one. Sorry. Okay. So top hat. Now, I want all of you to think of something that has happened in your life, or something that you are viscerally connected to, meaning a thing that means something to you, a story, a joke, a moment, a family event, a personal event, anything, a cartoon you thought that was hilarious when you were a kid, something that still makes you feel a certain way. You either get pissed, you smile, you get mad, viscerally connected to a story around a top hat. Involves a top hat in some way. It could be a speech you saw. It could be a history book you didn't want to open. It could be anything. Anything that involves top hat, but it has to mean something to you. It has to be important to you. Now, in an ideal world, that story, that narrative, involves other people. The other people in that world, theoretically, the reason that the story sticks with you, if indeed you have one, which I'm assuming we all do, it can be tangentially connected, but ideal, the spark should be Top Hat. Find the three faces, or hopefully at least three faces, attached to that story, and think about who they are, how you feel about them, what about them sparks that feeling in you. Did they make you laugh? Did they make you mad? Did they always spark joy in you? Did they always make you impatient because they were always late? Whatever it is, you feel a certain way about them. Three separate faces. Try to think about how they sound with all of the aspects that I have described so far. Where their voice is placed, the notes that they typically use when they speak, their bravado, their volume, where that voice is placed, the rate at which they speak, how easily their words do or don't come to them, the confidence with which they speak. Three separate people, three different things. And it doesn't matter what you say. You could pick something up in front of you. It doesn't matter what they say. But in an ideal world, you've got kind of you should be able to create a kind of a catchphrase of the moment. The reason that their voice sticks with you. The reason that they make you feel the way that you do. 5-word sentence. It doesn't matter. Put that down, you idiot. I'm so glad you're here. Wow, I missed you so much. Whatever it is. They should each have their own sentence. You can write it down if you want, or if you can keep it in your head, that's great. 3 different characters from your life, specific to you, how they made you feel, why you feel strongly about them, and ideally imbue this sentence with not just the way they sound, on all those aspects that I just said. Imbue this sentence with an emotional quality that would make your audience feel the same way that you do when you think about them. So, the aggressiveness, the tenderness with which, the openness with which they say this sentence will make your audience ideally respond in the same way that you do when you think about them. If Top Hat didn't spur 3 different characters, so to speak, 3 different personal stories in your life, 3 different personal personas that have impact on your life, let the story grow a little bit until you find 3. What happened just before that, or just after that? Or why do you remember this specific story? It was because you always experienced this thing with the Top Hat in a certain way, or you always think about it or have thought about it because it's in this way, or oh wow, I really had to think about Top Hat. The only thing I was ever to have Top Hat was because of this. Oh, that meant that. So ideally 3 different voices, 3 different sentences that have unique qualities, as we have already discussed, and an ideal world impact the audience with the same emotion you have when you think about the character. If somebody's got 3, just wave at me or whatever, and we'll listen. And if you want to take a second to come up with it, that's cool too. There is no right or wrong. There is no good, better, best. There is how many different faces can come to your head and how do they sound unique.
What if your memory is mostly vacant regarding other people? These exercises in improv, just like this, it's terrible for me trying to think of other people.
You selfish bastard. I never think of anyone but myself. Where was I? What was I eating? Were there other humans there? I don't care. Well, then, I guess in the same vein, I could ask that if there are 3 characters with which you are struggling right now, Grant, that you could give them effectively a narrative catchphrase that is a sentence that does everything that I just described. I wanted to remove folks from the performative aspect and try to find what is theoretically the mundane and push it into character. But if that is challenging, feel free to try and come up with 3 catchphrases that will in some way impact the audience emotionally that you can deliver in 3 unique voices. Carolyn thinks she's ready.
I'll get it out of the way.
Let's do it.
Okay. Just make sure I get the lines. I should have won. This is a great party. This really needed to be perfect.
Nice. Okay, so I want to push you even further. Do the first one. So the second one was the kind of laughing one, right? The laugh was for the second one. Give me a little bit more beat between the between those 3 characters. That first one, I should have won. Find an image that's inspiring you that gives their physical presence more of an appearance in the vocal quality. Meaning, are they a really big person? Are they really a small person? And change your notes a little bit to push it in the direction of whatever it was, and then apply that same thing to number 2, and apply that same thing to number 3. How big are these people? How small are these people? How loud? How quiet? How forceful? Whatever it is, and try to change up where you're placing the notes, if we will. To separate them even a little bit more, and try it one more time.
I should have won. This is a party. It's gotta be perfect.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, what I heard naturally from number 1 was almost a sort of a gravel happened. That's this time you did it. So maybe even push it a little farther, and think about that kind of bravado placement for that one with the gravel. With the party, it sounded almost kind of, I don't want to say, almost kind of sing-songy. It's kind of lyrical. So think about it in terms of musicality for that second one. And for the last one, I would go full on whiny, like droopy, like really whine the hell out of it. And do it one more time. So gravel, lyric-y, and whiny.
Okay. I should have won. This is a party. It's gotta be perfect.
Nice. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to remember the last thing you did, so.
Right. Go back and forth. And it's so rare that you're going to have pop back and forth between characters this quickly. But at the same time, if you can, then it probably indicates that you got a strong hold on who that character is uniquely in all the aspects that we talked about so far. I think it's good. I think the notes are a little similar, where it's placed in your voice as far as like the literal pitch. It's a little similar. I think you probably have more vocal range, because that's one of the things is that, like, I've got a pretty good vocal range. I try to keep, when I've got to do characters back to back, I try to make sure that they've got a specific section of the musical scale. They've got their own 8-note key, and they try to stay within that. So I think you can push yourself to find the musicality literal of the notes that they are speaking, more variance between them.
Can you give me an example of like maybe one of my characters so I can get a
So like if the loud brassy one was right in the middle of your voice, and this is a party, it's way up high, and the whiny one's down here, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? You want to try that?
Yeah, we can't do that. Do that again. I like to watch the. Sorry.
So the brassy's kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Then the party's kind of up here high, and the whiny's down low. Right?
Okay.
Do you want to try it, or you want to go away and come back and try it?
No, I'll try because it'll go away when we go away. Well, I should have won. Oh gosh, the second one's hard. Just get it. It's a party, and it's just gotta be really perfect.
Nice. There's more of a separation there, and I think you probably have more range that you could push it even further.
It helps to hear like hear it too.
Something to imitate.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do it on your own. Who's next? Who's got? I saw Levi's hand go first.
Yeah. Okay. Am
All
I just rolling?
Just do it. Just
okay.
do it.
Do it. Freaking do it. Okay. Well, what's on the docket for today? Good. Let's take it back from the top. Hi, how are you?
Nice. Excellent. I think it would be the same thing. Like the rates of speech were very different. Definitely found the different ways that they're thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could probably like I said before to her, if you think about your voice as being on a piano keyboard, and that you've got the lowest note that you can hit and the highest note that you can hit, when you got three characters that need to be back to back like this, if you can think about them having their portion of one scale, there are 8 notes, one's in the middle, one's up high, one's down low. It sounds like your last character would be your highest one the way that you did it.
Yeah.
It sounds like the first one might be your lowest, I think, but I leave it up to you if that supports your visuals of the character. Everything else was great. I think you could probably push them into their own register of notes even a little bit more.
Okay.
You want to practice it and come back, or you want to do it right now?
Let's do it right now.
Do it.
All right. Yeah, well, what's on the docket for today? Good. Let's take it back from the top. Hi, how are you?
Nice. How'd that feel?
Good.
Yeah, I
Good
think
deal.
I think kind of what I said before. The breathiness that you naturally incorporate. I think figuring out how you're utilizing that specifically to a character, like when they have sort of an aspirated vowel that you're putting some vocalization over. There were two of your characters used that vocal trick, which is fine. I think you will serve yourself better if you decide which one of them it's either more present with, or if there's a way to twist it, like we did with her, putting some gravel on it or something, so that if you're going to kind of do the same breathy sort of vowel, that you give the character a unique way to do it. But good job. Do you feel good?
Yeah.
Good. Who was? I think I saw Grant's fingers flail next.
Man, I can see you better now.
Oh, good.
I took it off the tripod. So I'm like,
The thing and the thing and the doing and the doing.
okay, I got 3 sentences written down. and I do have people in mind here, so.
Good.
I can help you be a better leader. I'm sorry to have to say that. We had a great time walking the dogs.
Cool. How'd you feel?
Fine.
Fine.
Fine,
Just
yeah.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
what it is. So, combination of the same reflections from the two folks before. I can hear the difference in energy between those three characters. I can hear their emotional state. They all kind of fell within Grant's natural speaking range, which isn't necessarily a problem. I think you can push yourself more towards the extremes with at least two of them. So like if you right now pick the one that is closest to your natural speaking range, and then find the one that would feel more like, you know, the annoying tenor in the church choir or whatever the heck it is, and the one that's going to feel more like the earthy dude that's the, you know, blue collar auto mechanic, whatever, so that you separate the vocal quality, literally the notes that your voice is making when you speak, and try and find the high one, the one that's closer to Grant, and then a low one. Not necessarily in that order, whichever one you think is appropriate as far as what they're saying and who they are in your head. You want to try it again, or you want to practice and come back?
Sure. No, I didn't know how much you wanted us to use our normal voice or just be totally different.
Sure.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the character workshop is just about being yourself.
Okay.
Wait, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not okay. I can help you be a better leader.
Nice.
Oh. I'm sorry to have to say that. We had a great time walking the dogs.
That's great. That was awesome. That was awesome. Simply for the sake of the exercise and pushing to the extremes, and this is a little bit artifice, do the same thing. Oh, they're laden with such emotion that this might be more challenging than I want it to be, because you picked very good standout phrases. Now really vary their rates of speech. Like one of them needs to speak really slowly, one of them maybe stumbles over their words a little bit, or just has a tough time thinking of it, or so emotional that they can't get them out, and the other one is, some other variation of how their words come to them well or easily or not. And try it one more time.
Okay. I can help you be a better leader. I'm sorry to have to say that. We had a great time walking the dogs.
Awesome. So if you could put yourself through those gymnastics when you're trying to think of how characters separate from one another, that's great. That's great. Right. Megan Garrett. Megan, do it.
Okay. Why does my heart start pounding faster? Embarrassing. All right. Hey, you want to go on a date forever? Silly. Hey, can you go by the Publix and get some Reese cups?
Oh man, those are all three really awesome lines. Okay, so this is a lesson we're all going to learn right now, because I think it's going to be the same for everybody. Look at your Zoom screen. We're going to do a technical thing right now. Look at your Zoom screen. Up in the upper left-hand corner, should be a little green shield. Do you see it? What does it say? Original sound what? Do you see it?
On.
Some people are seeing it in meeting information, apparently. So it should be like when you've got the whole grid of all of us, and you go like just put your little arrow over everybody's pictures for a second. Up there, just under where the screen would X out, there should be a little green shield. Do you see it?
Yeah, it says meeting information.
Oh, you got meeting information. Oh, that's interesting.
And it's right next to the recording symbol.
Right.
And an original sound on, which I know means off. It's like the reverse.
Correct.
You
Correct.
think it's crazy?
Another way to find it is if you go up to, I guess it would be, if you find your audio preferences
Mm-hmm.
and do just so you know what's happening, Megan, your computer is automatically turning off what it thinks they're going to be errant sounds. So when you did your really high voice, it completely shut off for all of us.
Okay.
Because your computer's automatically trying to filter it out.
Okay.
Nothing to do wrong with you at all.
I
It's
knew
just
it was
literally,
loud, but that's my grandma, and she was loud.
gotcha.
Oh,
It doesn't matter.
Audio.
Oh, show in meeting option to enable original sound.
There you go.
Wait, where did you find that?
Go to settings, audio, and then scroll down to below suppress background noise, and there's a little check bar
Yeah.
that'll give you the option to turn on original sound, but won't do it itself, which is annoying. But then you'll get the little thing, and now it says original sound off, and I can flip this to original sound on, and this is how I
There
sound
you go.
originally.
Ding, wada, ding, ding, ding.
Awesome. Thank you.
Neat. Didn't know
And-
that was there.
Also, if you can do headphones, like I've got my Bluetooth ones, if you ever have to do any Zoom performative stuff where other people are going to do lines with you and things, it's always better to have headphones. But we aren't doing that right now. But so, did you get it? Do you have it? Could you find it?
I think I did.
Beautiful. Try your high voice again. Yeah, it's still going out. Damn it. Did you get the screen? Did you get the little green symbol yet?
No. Okay. I think I fixed it. It says original
Do it again.
sound on.
Good. Do it again.
You're so silly.
Beautiful. Excrement. All right. So they were hilarious. Now that we've gone through that crap, and because you turned original sound on, I am hearing myself echoed. So I'm going to mute myself. And when we come back from the break, if you could have headphones, not the mic headphones, but just actual headphones, it would be awesome. I'm going to mute myself. I want you to do your three characters again when you get a chance. Whenever you're ready, you go ahead and do it.
Oh, you cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Whenever you're ready, you go ahead and do your voices again.
Oh, I do them again. Okay. Hey, you want to go on a date forever?
You're so silly.
Hey, can you go by the Publix and get some Reese cups?
Cool. Literally just to mute yourself for right now, because I'm going to keep hearing myself until you get headphones. Literally just to go through the exercise of it. The vocal qualities of Forever Date and Reese's were very similar. Yes, you put on the accent, which is totally fine for the purposes of the exercise. The kind of the raspy thing, the breathy with teeny bit of rasp was for both. It was pushed in number 3. I would challenge you to figure out a way to separate those voices even a little bit more. Reese's was a little deeper and obviously had the accent. So I think if you figure out a way to push Forever Date into a different area, whatever that is for you, find another specific aspect of who that person is to you so that you can give them an even more disparate quality. So it separates more from Forever Date. Pardon me, from Reese's. So the Forever Date separates more. If you've got it in your head, do it right now. If you don't, if you need to go ahead and think about it, that's cool too.
Okay, let me try. They're both men.
Kind of tell.
Hey, you want to go on a date? I don't know why I'm doing another country voice. Pardon me. It's in me. It comes out. Hey, you want to go on a date forever? Oh, hey, can you go by the Publix and get some Reese cups?
Cool, you did separate them. And again, literally just for the purposes of the exercise, you're probably impersonating them perfectly in terms of where they are in your head and who they are to you. Almost to exaggerate it and caricaturize them a little bit more. Pick one of those things that we've talked about already: rate of speech, bravado, whatever it is, and on those scales push them apart even more.
Hey, you want to go on a date forever? Gosh, this is hard. Hey, can you go by the Publix and get some Reese cups?
Definitely felt the difference there. I would challenge you when thinking about this in the future. What I just did. If it's technically not on the page, if there's a way you can avoid using those kind of sounds that separate, so you're not adding text. And we're going overboard on the challenge right now. What you did is great. I think that when you do think about rate of speech, I'll lead by example. If I'm sitting here speaking to you and I'm trying to come up with the words that I want to say and I'm trying to translate something very specific to you, in this case it happens to be the rate of speech and how quickly people can think of something, there's going to be a certain way that I speak when it's done quickly. Then every once in a while, the words just aren't going to come out at the same rate. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have to do the ums and fill in the spaces and all that stuff so that I'm not adding. They wind up becoming tricks. The ums become tricks. The ums and oohs and ahs become a thing that you're relying on to put the rate of speech out there so specifically. It's great. A character can do that. I'm not saying they can't. Give yourself the gift of it not always having to do it if a character doesn't think of their words quickly. Yeah, I think that's what I meant to say. Go away. Think about that more. Dude, let's do it.
Yeah. Why don't you go back to whence you came? Well, why don't you shut up? What an absolute bellend. Based on a real life experience.
Nothing like real life on the screen. Okay, again, for the purposes of the exercise, I felt the different emotional states of all three. That was very present in the way that they spoke. I would argue that there was very little differences in that whole thing I was talking about scale, about the notes on the scale that they're playing. If I were to literally chart it on a musical staff, I would imagine pretty much everything you said fell within about the same, like 7 notes on the same staff, versus, there being a bass clef and a baritone and a tenor and a soprano, all that crap. So push it a little bit to the extreme. Push those characters that you know a little bit more toward caricature, and see if you can find their different places on the musical staff.
Why don't you go back from whence you came?
Why don't you shut up? What an absolute bellend.
Nice. How'd that feel?
Yeah, extreme, but it works.
Yeah. And believe it or not, to our ears, it feels weird because it's based on a real life experience. You're going to have that specific sound resonating in your head, and you may be doing a perfect impersonation of exactly who these people are. For the purposes of creating disparate character, again, just for the experiment of it, the what may feel false to you, if the thinking and the application of what that sentence is trying to translate to the audience is authentic and true, putting it through a little bit more of a caricaturized sound doesn't impact us in the same way that it does you. I mean, it kind of circles back to Levi with the laughs. You may be doing exactly what you think sounds like the thing you're trying to communicate, but that pushing them away from each other when you have to do things in rapid succession, if you ever have to do that like this, or when characters have to be in a scene with themselves, with one another, you give yourself and the audience the gift of that separation, so that even on the small emotional size and things, there's a very distinct difference on our ear. So what may feel false to you, if you can figure out a way to think of it as almost like a mirror with a color to the glass, a mirror with something that changes that reflection just enough so that we see it as unique to that surface, will make it easier for us to hear the difference in the characters. So it's the odd part about doing character voices is that it's exactly that. They are characters. There's a show that I work on right now called Taffy. I am it's been like a Tom and Jerry thing. I played the animated show. I played the dog to this raccoon who's pretending to be a cat so that he can keep getting fed by the rich lady, and the dog's always trying to let everybody know that it's actually a raccoon, and that's the whole series, and we're almost going to season 3, whatever. He is pretty much the only character on the show that I play, is the dog. So I kind of get to use my full range. I get to use my falsetto when he gets smacked the wrong way, and I get to be down roughly rushed. I get to use the whole thing because there aren't other characters that I have to represent. Or if they're there, they're not right up back against each other. I'm doing scenes, and then so it's just very rare that I have to kind of overlap with myself or have conversations with myself. For clarity for the audience, if you're in a place where you ever have to have conversations with yourself, that's when you have to start really trying to do this separation thing. So if you only ever have to represent one of those characters at a time, you are fine. But if you find that you need to be presenting a scene where you are showing two characters having a conversation with one another, with you as singular performer, you need to give yourself and the audience the gift of creating as much separation with those as you can, using all those tools that we've already talked about. So for the purposes of the exercise, although it may feel like it doesn't ring true, may feel inauthentic, I think you should find ways to push those other parts of your vocal range and separate your characters so that they inhabit a specific section of that vocal range. You want to try it one more time? Let's see.
Sure.
Why don't you go back to whence you came?
Why don't you shut up? absolute bellend. That one was high as well. That's weird, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and again, it wasn't being high wasn't the thing. I think you pushed the other guy so low, and you pushed the one that was high. I think you probably could have found more of a mid-range with that last one. But again, for the purposes of this experiment, I'm sure you see/hear it, and it feels extreme and unnatural right now. But if you find a way to use that upper part of your register in a way that doesn't sound. I mean, yeah, this sounds like a caricature. There's no way not to sound like a caricature. But that doesn't mean that the caricature can't express real thoughts and real ideas. It can be off the chart stupid and still relate something truthful and authentic to the moment. Okay? Okay? And it does, I mean, it's one of those things that you have to practice. Like for me, I have either BBC or NPR on the radio whenever I'm doing my hour and 15 minute to 2 hour and 45 minute commute, depending upon traffic, from my basement in Connecticut to New York City. Any and every time I hear a sound that it sounds unique to my ear, a dialect, a vocal quality, someone being interviewed, one of the presenters or whatever. Oh my God, there's a dude on BBC right now, Clive. He sounds like someone's trying to put on a bad, deep voice. This is the BBC. He sounds like he's totally underwater. Today in England, it sounds like somebody's literally yanking your chain and putting on a stupid voice to do the news, or that he put on a voice changer. And I'm saying, now I'm talking like this. It's what it sounds like. It's ridiculously weird, but oh my God, it's so amazing to listen to. I emulate it, imitate it right there, right then and there. I try to parrot everything that I hear until it feels like I could improvise in that sound and not just parrot it. I could improvise in that speaking rate, or where those pauses and where the breaths are taken. I could not just imitate but emulate with new words and new ways of thinking. And then maybe even if I'm into a voice and I hear someone else speak, I try to say what they just said like the other person would have. I'm sure I look crazy. Thank God that like headphones and earphones in cars are a thing now, so that the guy talking to himself in a car doesn't look as crazy. And luckily my wife's kind of gotten used to it when we watch TV. And I usually just try to whisper them rather than it filling the room, because it is a little awkward. But you being complete charge of your instrument and being able to do things that, because it's coming from you, it's going to be authentic. It can't not be. You are doing a thing that entertains you, so it's obviously something that you want to authentically, at the very least, entertain the audience with. It may not feel exactly like the thing you want to represent to you, but it's always going to have that feel of authenticity because you're trying to communicate it to the best of your ability. And the more you increase your ability and your range, the more likelihood that you'll be able to more authentically represent whatever it is that's in your head that you're trying to translate for an audience. We should take a break. I saw Carolyn kind of did on her own. She just kind of walked away. Just walked away. Didn't care. Empty window. She just left. So, it's 10 minutes good? You come back in 10 minutes? In a minute?
What time are we finishing today? I didn't see that.
I thought it was 2 to 5. I thought it was 3 hours. Is it 2 to 4? It was 2 to 5, right? It's 3 hours.
Oh, I thought
it's 2 to 4, but you're welcome to.
Oh, it's 2 to 4.
Time.
Oh, well then never mind. Then let's stay here for 5 more minutes. I thought it was 2 to 5. I wrote it down wrong.
It's 2 to 5.
I was waiting. Who was gonna?
I thought it was
It can
till
be 2
8
to 5
o'clock.
if we want it to be 2 to 5.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a 3-day workshop, right, guys?
Yeah.
3 workshops.
October 2nd to 4th.
I got new pajamas and everything.
Okay, well then in that case, since technically we only have 13 minutes left, Does anyone have any questions about what's happened so far? Comments, concerns, specific questions that have come up since? We can also go off track if you want. If you just have a general question about other stuff, whatever.
Are you?
Sure.
How's life?
Good. Little. I just had to have a fight with my town. They wanted to make the sidewalk in front of my house wider, and they were going to take away part of my yard to do it.
Oh.
And I had to fight town hall.
Did you win?
I did.
That's huge. Congratulations.
And it all just comes from using their terminology back on them. So.
Is there a documentary forthcoming?
And there's going to be a short film inspired by it.
One brave man's fight to not have more concrete on his lawn.
They thought he just wanted it mowed. They
Get off my lawn.
Do you often use your facial expressions to motivate your voice? By that?
I am certain that's a great question. There are it's a funny thing, like Tim Lagasse is another very talented puppeteer and puppet builder and artist. He has this thing where he's like totally dead faced. Doesn't matter what the character's doing. He's always putting everything into the voice and into here. For me, I find myself being more authentic and more viscerally connected if I'm trying to experience the emotion. So it reads on my face a little bit. But there's also certain sounds that I do that right now. Well, here I noticed Levi has his. The instrument helps. So mine is a Neumann U87.
Ooh.
It picks up an amazing amount of sound. Right now, I use just my little my monitor mic simply because I can tap it on and off and not have to go finding the mute button to click. Plus, I find that that sound doesn't come over Zoom anyway, so it doesn't really make my sense. There are certain sounds that I make that I can't make without doing certain things with my face. Usually it's the creature sounds. That's another thing. We didn't even talk about that as much here, but when you get into emulative sounds of animals or creatures, to me, everyone's knee-jerk instinct is to just simply try and make the sound. I try and figure out what the character is trying to communicate and or how they are feeling when they make the sound, rather than just... Because a moo is just a moo, right? A moo is just moo. And again, I have to drop my jaw. Moo, moo. Now, if I am a bull threatening another creature to get out, there's a different tonality that's going to come across to a specific emotional context. And now I'm bringing it back to you. The question that you asked, I have to do this thing with my face to get what I think is the resonance to make that sound. Not only the physical construct changing the sound, like if I really drop my jaw and I do certain things with my face to make a sound, versus really putting the enunciative and the resonantal qualities to the sound. I'm not, again, really changing my voice, but by distorting my face, it's going to bounce through my face differently. So there's the literal, I have to make a face to make a sound, but then there's I probably have a tendency to relay the emotion on my face in order to click into what I want my voice to be doing to support that emotion.
Another
Yes.
question. Could you give an example of like an emotional cow? So you're talking about the different emotions that they're coming to. So like coming from different emotions with the sound of the animal, for example.
Okay. Let's here. We'll do dogs. We'll do a dog. The I'm happy to see you yip versus the get out of my yard. Same. The little yappy one for me is an inhale. It's an inhale bark versus an exhale bark. The rate of versus automatically changes what would be the emotional impact of what you're hearing, I think. The short yips versus the extended, the versus the calling off to someone versus, everything about that. And then, of course, then you got your sizes of dog and what, so threatening versus calling versus same basic sound, but how I the rate of the notes, whether it's quarter note, a half note, a whole note, the rests between them, the sounds between them automatically create this context of the emotional state, right? I mean, hopefully you hear it. And I think it's going to be different, and again, like, there's language differences, like what I would automatically kind of, like, we think rof. Hispanic cultures do mo. They do a mo sound. And that's their go-to. So what's fascinating is even with animal sounds, there's going to be something about you and what your experience and what your knowledge of the creatures and their emotional states are going to bring to it. You don't try to do the thing that you think everybody hears as dog. You try to emulate the dog that touched you and is in your brain and you remember. Other questions?
Is that a cow dog?
Cow dog.
I have a question. So if you're preparing for, say, an audition or you have a new character come your way or whatever it is, do you kind of just for yourself like workshop different options, or do you just kind of like, do you have more than one option prepared, or do you just go with your gut instinct and flesh that out? If that makes sense. Like, what's your approach to landing on a voice?
There's a threefold answer. First part of it is Megan, mute your mic. There you go. And the second part is, if you're lucky enough, the specificity of the breakdown is going to kind of lead you in certain directions anyway. If they're either going to say sound like or like such and such from so and so, or they're literally going to say we want the voice to be this character from blah blah blah. And so then you're working on sort of an impersonation, and the closer you can come to an impersonation, in my mind, you're breaking it down in all the ways that we already have today, in terms of the literal notes, the musicality of the notes, the rate of speech, the placement, all of the basic approaches to everything. Then what I'm probably going to do next is bring my A game at least to get in the door. Meaning if I have a character that's already in my stable that I think applies to what they're asking for or what they're looking for, and I can do more interesting things with the way I interpret the text rather than just trying to go through whatever vocal gymnastics are necessary to hit the marks that they've asked you to hit. If I've already got something that I don't have to think about that I can apply to the situation, because then I can make the most of the text, I'm going to go to what's a sure thing for me. But the biggest thing you can do is that if they ask you for more than one take, it is the actor's instinct to do the thing that you think works and then try to do the thing that you think works better. Meaning, I'm going to do a certain quality and then I'm going to push it a little bit for the second take. In my experience, you do two completely different things that fall within the parameters that they're asking for on all of these fronts, listen to them again, and put them in the order that you think you want to be your first impression that they're going to get from you. Because the likelihood is most auditions that come across somebody's desk, they don't listen to the whole thing. They listen to the first 10, 15 seconds, and they are either in or they're not, and they move on. They're probably not going to listen to your second take. That's just math. That's not you suck. That's just math. It's either they're screening through quick, or they already heard somebody that they're just comparing you against, or they've only got so much time, or whatever. So you serve yourself best by doing the thing that makes you either think you pop or makes the material pop to you. If it makes you laugh, put that thing first. The minute you put it in terms of, I think they're looking for this, you probably sound inauthentic because you're trying to do a thing you think they want. Whereas if you do the thing that is most interesting to you, it's probably going to sound the most interesting. So, circling back to your actual question, I'm going to probably go with something that I've already had in my stable, or I'm going to really look at their description, and ideally I've also got descriptions of the other characters that they're casting, so I can figure out how this character is different from all those others and highlight that. So if you're auditioning for the little kid, and there's definitely a dad and a mom and a sister and a brother or whatever it is, and you fall within older brother, older character, sibling, middle sibling, younger sibling, whatever it is, what can you accentuate about yourself that makes it disparate from those other characters that they might be casting? And if you're lucky enough that you already know the other characters in the thing, and you're going to be a piece of the puzzle, making sure you don't sound, on all those fronts we've already talked about, like any of the other characters that already exist. So if it's for an existing property, you're fitting into the world uniquely. If it's a brand new thing and all bets are off, figure out a way to showcase what is most unique about you in as much as you can.
Thank you. That was an amazing answer. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to copy this. Where is it? Sorry, I want to make sure I don't miss this thing. I just got your note, Grant. I'm copy pasting so that I have the info. Beep. Other questions, because we're basically up right now. I'll walk away having missed anyone. Levi, make it quick. Make it quick, Levi.
Oh God. No. If I don't know if you ever had this experience of like, you come in to look at a character, and you go into the breakdown and you just go, I don't have no idea where to get purchase on this thing. It's, maybe it's a little vague, or the character is somewhat blandly described. When you get stuck like that, what's maybe some advice on how to get some traction?
Cool. So, interestingly, I'm a kind of at a different place in my career, in that if something isn't jumping off the page at me, like right now, that same producer that I just talked about sent me an audition for a video game from China, and all the characters are Chinese. Yeah. And he sent me the audition, and I literally wrote back and said, no, I'm not even gonna. No, dude, you should be. There's plenty of folks who fit the bill in the New York City area. You shouldn't even be asking me to audition for this thing. So if it doesn't touch me, or I don't feel like I'm actually gonna connect with the thing, I am probably gonna ignore it. I am probably gonna pass it by. So just honest answer there, because that's where I am now. That having been said, if you're in a situation where you want to find the connection, the little game we just played just now of, is there something that clues you in to a specific narrative from your past that you can't let go of. The joke somebody told you in school, that first time you went to blah blah blah, that the first person who rejected you on a date, whatever it is, the notion that you can find a connection to the material that gives you a window into a solid character that's going to look at those words and interpret those words uniquely. You're always going to be more interesting if you make the surprising choices, because your tendency is going to be, oh, well, they must be looking for something like this. In my experience, when you go, I think I know what would make me laugh if I was listening to this, or I think I know what would make me cry if I was listening to this, or I think I know what would draw me in if I was hearing these words for the first time said in this way. If you can't make it interesting, number one, it's not on you. But number two, figure out some way to make it interesting to you. Is that too vague an answer, or does that help?
No, that makes sense. Just, dig back into it and see if you can't find a point of connection.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Sorry we went over, Jean Marie. There's my confusion.
I think it's great. Thank you, Tyler. This was awesome. No surprise to anybody here, I'm sure, but this was awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Megan, I've already offered this to you, but Levi, anybody who was taking this class, I was offering them if they want to join our Puppet Playground this week. Please let me know. We still have a couple spots in there, and I want to make sure that we're spreading the good word. There's some amazing classes. Tyler's coming up at the end, and Hair Tier runs our Puppet Playground, which I think everybody who's taken it can agree is super, super fun. It's a great practice opportunity. So let me know, and it's awesome to see you all. Thanks for coming out on another Saturday. See some of you tomorrow. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tyler.
Tyler.
Thank you.
Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thanks.
That was awesome.
Bye-bye.